and my Facebook. Boom, looks like we live. We got the red dots rolling. So what's up, everybody? This is Coach Ernie Williams back with another Catching Up With episode. Today we are joined with AJ Abrams, the man.
Don't put the gas on it, man.
A fellow Longhorn. We did go to school at the same time and play at UT. So I wanted to bring him on to talk about, his success story and his journey in the game of basketball, and how he got to play at UT, how he got to go professionally overseas, and let him talk about his journey so that it can resonate with some of you athletes out there, some of you parents. AJ, welcome.
Appreciate it. No, I appreciate you having me on. You told me that you've done 11 so far. I'm happy to be on. I'm happy to talk about my journey. Like I said, if it resonates with anyone, or if I can help pass this talk that we have, feel free to reach out to me. Definitely happy to help. I'm in the helping business as far as student athletes.
Awesome. Good to hear. So AJ, take us way back. Let's go to maybe elementary, 4th, 5th grade, 6th grade. What sports were you doing? What kind of kid were you?
I was a sports kid through and through, right? But shockingly enough, specifically for basketball, I did not start playing until 5th grade. Okay. I would play outside in the front yard, of course, with my dad or something like that, but nothing was organized until 5th grade. I was straight baseball and football. If you asked me back then, and if you can throw in karate for a little bit.
Was it like 2 weeks?
No, it was good. I had some belts.
Okay.
And then, but if you were to ask me back then, I was going to play shortstop in the majors. That's what I was going to do. And then kind of what transitioned me from that is literally every time I would go up to bat, I was getting pegged. And I told my mom, I said, no, I got to pick something else because I don't feel like by the ball every time I go bat. Right. So then we switched over to football. And then if at that point in time, it went from I'm gonna play shortstop for the majors, and then I wanted to play football, so it went to I'm gonna play running back for Michigan. It went to that in elementary school, because Charles Woodson, if that throwback name resonates with anyone. But and then it got cold, and I said, you know what, I need to be inside. So it's been basketball. My 5th grade, I played. In middle school, played football and basketball, but then when I got to high school, it was straight basketball.
Okay. And you're locals at Austin, right?
Yep. So I like to say born and raised in Round Rock, but I got here when I was like 2 or 3 years old. So I was technically from a little town called Sherman, Texas, way up by Oklahoma, Dallas area, kind of in between there. Dad got transferred for jobs, so we moved to Round Rock, and that's why I just call Round Rock home, because I was 2-3 years old.
Okay. And what high school did you go to?
Round Rock McNeil. Yeah, go Mavericks.
Awesome. So you played many sports, but you had a plan. And what I like about it is that you kind of knew what you wanted. You went from sport to sport. The weather wasn't right. Let's change it up.
Yeah. But we got into that AC and we were good.
Exactly. So getting into middle school, did you play, like, how early did y'all start playing select?
So after my 5th grade year, or 5th grade season, we played with a little league called Town and Country. I think it's actually still up and running. But some of the coaches out there had like a quote unquote select team, and they picked me up to play. And that's literally the team that I played with from my 5th grade year till I was, can't play anymore, junior in high school. And then we were the Austin Dogs, and we were a nothing, nobody team. And we built it up to where we became a shoe team. We got sponsored by Adidas.
Wow.
So we built that up pretty good over the course of the years. But it started, you talk about grassroots. I still remember going out at my coach's job doing car washes to trying to raise money to just to get to tournaments. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. I remember those too.
Yeah. Then good old Adidas came in for a couple seasons and was like, yeah, no more car washes.
Yeah. So you said the Austin Dogs?
Yeah.
I
Yep.
just heard a parent say that name, so I think they still rocking and rolling.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
so they're still around. I try to go back sometimes, but I don't like being that that old alumni that goes back and like hovers over. So I try to distance, and when people want me to come out and speak and stuff, I'll go out there. But
Right.
people got to create their own path.
Right. Cool. So how was high school? Let's tell us about high school. Tell us about at McNeil. The things you had to deal with from like freshman to senior. How'd you see yourself grow?
Right. So I personally, from 7th grade to 8th grade, I made the goal that, hey, I want to play varsity. Was it a long shot? Yes, because you guys can look at me now and you see that I'm not just some physically dominating specimen that walks in through the door. I was little, to say the least. So I think I entered high school maybe 140, 145 is pushing it. You know what I'm saying? So but I still had the goal because I was okay. I was pretty good at basketball, so I wanted to make the team, and not just the freshman team or JV. But the problem is we had a really good guard my freshman year, his senior year. And it came to the point where I'm like, hey, do I want to sit on the bench on JV? On varsity, or do I want to actually play? So I played my freshman year. I played JV. We actually went, I think that it was like 30-1. We lost the very last game of the season. It was funny because the JV team was getting more press than the varsity team at the time.
Ooh, I like that.
It was very contentious during practice, simply because the papers were coming to talk to us because we were undefeated and all that stuff, and varsity was not. So you can imagine how those practices went. But
Sure.
When people say that, well, why didn't you play varsity your freshman year? It's because of that. I wanted to play. I wanted to actually play and not just have the status of saying, "Hey, I played varsity basketball." But then the funny thing is like I got a really, really good excuse because I was the guard that was in front of me. He was the district MVP of that season. So I'm like, okay, cool. It's not like I was sitting behind somebody that wasn't doing anything, So it kind of grew, but. It was just to kind of go back and answer that other question, how was it in high school? So at that time, when you start playing select basketball, you're traveling not only, citywide, but you're going state to state to state. And so I would catch literally a lot of flack because, like, I think we were talking about this earlier, Round Rock McNeil is straight suburbs, and suburb kids don't get the whole bunch of respect, And so we, especially me, people didn't really think I could hoop, so they would come in just talking, and I never did start it. But you can go back and look at the track record. I had a really good record of finishing it.
Yeah.
But so that was kind of my goal. So me and a friend, when we finally got to varsity our sophomore year, it wasn't even basketball related goals. It was like, hey, we want to fill our gym up for every game. And I don't know if you guys have ever been to McNeil High School, but we have rafters at the very top. And I said, hey, we're going to have people where it's going to be standing room only for our games. Like, I can promise you that. And so that's what we worked for. It wasn't just about winning. It was about literally getting respect for the suburbs that we can hoop. We just happen to live in the suburbs.
Right. I hear you. I want to talk more about you making the conscious decision to play JV because you understood that there's a guy in front of you. Your goal was varsity, but you didn't let that get to you. Right. And I know a lot of kids that I work with or have heard they'll have that varsity goal and in mind, but sometimes that doesn't happen. Right. And so if you continue to go down that path of not doing anything and feeling beat down by not getting on varsity, you're not going to take advantage of your opportunities. And you had a great opportunity, it sounded like.
Yeah, it was a really good opportunity for me on JV simply because I think a lot of people have a hard time removing their own ego out of the way, especially, and I don't know who the audience is right now, so if I hurt people's feelings, it is not intentional, but a lot of times, and I went through this with a couple of teammates that I had, but a lot of times it's the parents that have an idea of where they think their kid is at, and they're really not, and it's kind of hard to swallow that pill. I mean, I was blessed to have parents that were straight up truth tellers to me. And if it was something that I was not doing or that they thought that I needed to work, they would straight up tell me. You know, it wasn't sugarcoating of anything like that. So, you know, that was kind of ingrained in me early, so that when that decision that I was able to make to say, hey, you know, it doesn't make sense for me just to go sit down and watch somebody get a district MVP. Although, you know, watching and learning the game is critical.
Mm-hmm.
Applying it is even more critical because think about it, you're still practicing. I don't know if that's everywhere, but for me, I was still practicing against varsity players. Mm-hmm. So I was getting better, but I was playing games JV, which was still elevating my game because I wasn't playing. I don't want to say down, but I wasn't playing to the level of what JV is considered. I wanted to play to the standards of what I was practicing against every day at school. So a lot of it is just kind of swallowing your pride and being able to assess where you're at. Like, you know, the ability to self-assess is in life is critical, because if you can't tell yourself what you're good at or what you're not good at, then it's going to be tough to hear from someone else because you're not going to want to hear it.
Right.
So again, just, you know, it's an ego thing. You swallow your pride, swallow your ego, and not necessarily say that you failed, but, you know, the goal wasn't accomplished. It's not the end of the world. Now go practice or go get better at it, so that when the next year does come, now you're in a position to not only be on the team, but you're a vital part of the team as well.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So let's stick on that note, talking about self-assessing and moving around the ego.
Yeah.
Talk about what your mindset was when it came to the negativity of people saying, you know, maybe you weren't big enough, right? You can't play. You know what I'm saying? For the smaller point guards or anybody in a certain position that they are smaller in, like even post players, they can be smaller, you know, forwards or whatever.
Yeah.
Talk about your mindset of getting over that hump and maybe not even realizing it.
So that's the thing. I was so naive that when people would tell me, I was like, but yet you can't beat me. That would be my response.
You can't beat me. Yeah.
That would be my response. You can say I'm little all you want, but when the score, when the clock runs out, let's look at the scoreboard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I have to attribute a lot of the stuff to my parents, because there was one thing that they would always tell me again over and over, and I've told my son this, and they would always tell me, if there was anything that I could leave you in this world, I wouldn't leave you money. I wouldn't leave you anything else but confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're confident in yourself, then you can set the path, you can set the goal, and then you can go accomplish that goal. So I guess a little bit of being naive mixed in with a little arrogance, mixed in with a little confidence, you know, mm-hmm. from what I was taught, allowed me to not really listen to the naysayers. Now, when I say don't listen, I heard it.
Right.
I didn't let it bother me. You know,
one ear, out the other.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when people say that they don't hear it or whatever, they don't listen to them. No, we hear the negative stuff. It's just the point of, do you want it to allow it to negatively impact you, or are you going to allow it to positively impact you? And so for me, it was a positive impact. And I told you before, our goal, you know, once we got to varsity, was like, we're going to be the team to beat. We're going to be, you know, the team that when people come, that we have a target on our back. And I think we got in high school, we were ranked like number 2 in the state. Mm-hmm. Little bitty Round Rock McNeil High School, you know, 5A school, you know, it's 6A now, but at the time there was no 6A. 5A school, you know, ranked number 2 in the state. And if you looked at us, you'd be like, nah. Nah, it's gonna be a cupcake game. But it wasn't. It's because we all had goals in mind as far as what we wanted to do, and we didn't listen to the naysayers, because it was a point that we had our goal bigger than what the naysayers were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Talk about how did practices go? How did practices go? Talk about your teammates a little bit and how y'all kind of just gelled together. And maybe you didn't gel, but then at a certain point in the, you know, season, you might have.
It was so with any team, you always have like little certain cliques.
Of course.
You know, but that doesn't mean you can't cohabitate or coexist on the court. That just means you may like somebody more personality wise and don't really gel with someone off the court. It should never affect you on the court. And so we had that. We had our set of guys that we would hang out with, and then there would be like, all right, bro, I don't really want to hang out with them. But
Mm-hmm.
when we got on the court, square business. It wasn't a position to where we were like, I'm not passing him the ball tonight. Again, because we had that goal in mind. So the practices that we had, and we were talking about this earlier, is when you're surrounded by a group of teammates, and it's a situation to where you're working really, really hard day in and day out, even outside of practice, because we can talk more about stuff that you do outside of practice. But the more work that you put in, expectations get put on yourself because you put the work in, but then you have to rely on 4 other guys that are on the court with you at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
and they may have not put in the same amount of work that you put in, and so now you're having to rely on those people to kind of progress and get you to where you want to be. And so we had some fights, to be honest. We had some fights because we had some very talented people on our team, but they could have been so much better if they actually did stuff outside of practice to actually get better. So you kind of look back on it in high school now, you can always say, well, what if he had done this? What if he had done this? And the sky was pretty much the limit for us because we had so much talent and so much the mental capability of what basketball calls for that, you look back on it, you're like, wish we would have done that, or wish I would have done this.
Okay. What was your biggest obstacle in high school? It can be on the court, off the court.
My size.
You said what?
Looking back on it is my size. Yeah.
Size?
Yeah, because so a lot of people will always ask me, well, why don't you play point guard? And the funny thing is I did play point guard in high school, and even my junior and senior year in college. For the most part, I played point guard.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're looking at a team system, when you have your point guard that's predominantly one of the best shooters on the team, all eyes are on him when they have the ball, when you bring the ball down the court. So it makes it very
little freeze in there. Hold on really quick. All right, let's see if we can get him back. I can't see him. AJ, you still there? All right, I think he's gonna refresh his link and get back with us. Technical difficulties, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. Drop a comment or a question below. I can see those, and we'd love to answer your questions here. Let's see. Hopefully he pops back on in a couple seconds. Just refreshing that link. Let me see. All right, we back. Let's get in here.
That's technology for you.
It's all good. We're good.
Well, refresh my memory. What were we talking about?
We were just talking about your biggest obstacle, being size, and you dealing with the naysayers and people talking about your size.
Yeah. To kind of drive that point home, it was the biggest obstacle. Kind of looking back at it now, was like people really thought I was like my size was an advantage for them, and I was like, it really. I didn't really pay attention to it, but especially when you make that commitment to go to a university, a D1 university, and then you want to go back and say, oh, I guess my size really doesn't matter then, huh?
You were getting into the point you were talking about, probably why they moved you. You were a shooting guard, right? They moved you.
Okay, yeah. So I'll start with high school first. So the funny thing is, I played with two Daniel Gibsons. The first one, his first one was on my high school team. Last name ended with a P, and of course D Gibb from Texas ended with a B, right? So Daniel was a really, really good passer, but shot wise, he would make an open shot, but he wasn't going to go get you like 20, 25 a night, And so it was really tough to play point guard. And, of course, when you're bringing the ball down the court as a point guard, you have all eyes on you, And so me being in a position where I could shoot the ball and can score the ball every time, even going to camps, the coaches would always say, okay, well, we want you to play the two so we can get everybody's eyes off of you, kind of get lost in the defense. And so, okay, that's fine because I wanted to score. That was what I was good at. I mean, I obviously you know how to make the right passes and everything, but I wanted to score. So I just kind of fed into it. But after going to college and then, getting that evaluation from the NBA, the biggest feedback that I got was, well, you don't play point guard. I'm like, well, I do. I just don't bring the ball down the court, but the offense flows through me because I come off the pick and rolls. I do all of that. But so what I found out later on is that it literally hurt me that I just didn't do the act of bringing the ball down the court because now they're looking at the matchups. Like, does he match up well with another two guard? Is he going to have to play two but guard the other team's one? And so what does that do to so that's what I kind of found out at the later stages of my career, but early on, I was a point guard that could score.
That's awesome. I wanted to talk about your parenting style, because you've been talking about your parents and how they pushed you, and sounds like a good support system. How would you describe their parenting style? Were they different, mom and dad, but cohesive? How did they allow you to be this?
So athlete? they were there. What's a good way to put this? They were not helicopter parents. So they let me. They told me what to do. They gave advice. When I got to a certain age, they stopped giving that advice and started making me come to them and ask questions. Hey, what about this? What about this? Because there's a growth stage that you go through. But early on, I mean, 100% honestly, I was a mama's boy. I still am. So it was all about pleasing mom. Hey, mom, what do you think about this? Hey, mom, what do you think about this? So it was all about that. But as far as a parenting style, it was more so of, hey, we're going to tell you how to be successful, but it's up to you to actually do it. No one's going to do the work for you. And so that's kind of what as a parent now, I'm literally taking on those same type of qualities because, again, knowing what I know now and, having shift careers from basketball to real estate and doing all this stuff, it's you got to be confident in yourself, and two, you're going to have to be able to put the work in and be disciplined enough to do it. So the two biggest things that I got from my childhood was to be confident and you got to be disciplined.
What would your advice be for parents that are coaches but also are coaching their child in whatever sport?
My dad was my coach.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so he was my coach for, I would say, 2 years, and you see on movies and stuff all the time, or TV shows, that the parent of the coach's kid is always so tough on that player. And it was the complete opposite for me. I mean, it was, hey, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do this. But he never did single me out as if I was supposed to be just so much more elevated just because I was the coach's son. So the funny thing about that is I talk to my friends all the time that played with me or coached by my dad, and they were like, yeah, your dad was super cool, but he would get on you when it's time being. I was like, yeah, welcome to my world. That's every day. But for the coaches' kids and the kids that have parents that are coaches, the best advice that I could give, because I might be thrust into that role now. I'm praying to God that I don't have to be. But the biggest advice I would give is, whatever sport that it is, and I was talking about basketball, leave it there, and then when you're home, be a parent. You're not coach at the home. You're a parent. And then when you are back on the court, you're the coach.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the best advice that I would give. If you're anybody in that kind of situation. It's a little staticky now.
It's all over the place. It's all good though. All right. So does that sound good? Better to you?
It sounds it's still a little scratchy.
I'm gonna bring it back. All right. How does that sound?
A little better. I can make that a little bit.
Press the link again, and you can just refresh it in the corner. It should pop right back up. But I wanted to add on to that. I agree with what you just said about leaving off the sport or whatever happened on the court or wherever y'all were. Don't bring it home. My mom was also my coach all the way up until high school, and we had a relationship. I got the guts to say.
You're kind of breaking up now.
Okay.
Better?
Yes. How's that?
Yeah, we're good now.
Man, I'm telling you, it's all good. All right, keep working with me, y'all. But I was just saying, my mom, I also had to have a conversation with her maybe sophomore year or junior year. If just can we not talk about basketball on the car ride home, at the dinner table, in the morning, right?
Yeah.
As a high level athlete, we know when we screwed it up. We don't want to talk about it.
We don't want to hear it again. We just went through it.
We just went through it. Teammates acting up.
Yeah.
We got the ball picked at half court.
The thing that happened to me, because my high school coach was really laid back. But my dad would like to coach from the stands.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to, I believe it was like my sophomore, junior year. And I'm like, hey, Pops, I can't talk to you and try to listen to your advice and your advice at the same time. Like, you got to save it for after the game. Mm-hmm. And so I was still trying to be respectful, because he had this like certain call that I knew it was him in the stands. Like, even at Texas, 18,000 people in the stands, I could hear him with that call. And I would like start looking around like, all right, cool. Where is he? Because I knew that call. So just imagine that, even though it was a full stadium or full arena in high school, I could still pick that out, right? Yeah, and so I would still try to be the respectful son and like try to look up there real quick, like, all right, whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But then he tried to get mad at me. Was like, don't cut your eyes at me. I'm like, bro, I'm trying to be respectful because you're trying to talk to me. I'm trying to listen to the coach.
You splitting time.
Right. So I finally just told him, I was like, yo, just don't talk to me until after the game. All right, don't say nothing. Just sit there and watch me. I don't care if I do something to make you mad. I don't care if I do something to make you like, yeah, that's no, don't say nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Just watch.
Yeah, of course. And you know what? I go to games around town, middle school, even the younger, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. I mean, them second graders, they're turned around because they hearing all this from the parents, but they have a coach. You know what I'm saying? It puts a lot of stress. It does put a lot of stress on the players, and the younger that they are,
yeah. They're always gonna listen to dad. They're always gonna listen to mom. They're always gonna
listen to mom, and that starts a feud between the coaches and the parents, and it just needs to be about that kid. So my advice to parents, because I have had a coaching parent, is like you said, you know, talk about it before the game or after, but don't be the parent in the stands hollering stuff, and because that puts strain on y'all's relationship, because you know, and then you got strain on the coach's relationship.
I'm a coach because now you're trying to say, yeah, well, my dad's talking to me, or my parents talking to me, I'm trying to listen to you. It doesn't make for a good dynamic. But because if you, I did a speech or a talk the other day. I said, talking specifically about the parent. I said, if you wanted to actually coach, go be a coach.
Yeah.
Don't sit there and just coach your kid, because that's essentially what parents do. I mean, they're not really worried about anybody else's kid. They want their kid to do well, which is understandable. Mm-hmm. And nothing wrong with that. But when you're out there just yelling specifically to that one player, which happens to be your kid, it puts a whole strain on everybody else that's in that gym that's wearing the same uniform as you.
True. Okay, so let's get to college. Before that, we gotta talk about your recruiting process.
Yeah.
How did you feel during recruiting, as far as the nerves? Were you nervous? Were you not? And talk about the team that you were interested in.
I didn't like the recruiting process at all.
Okay.
Like seriously, I mean, you see, especially nowadays, where you got people with hats lined up and doing all. I did not like that whatsoever. I didn't want all that attention. I don't like to be seen. Right? Yeah. I didn't like to be seen. I just want to be low key. Want to pick my school, go to school, mm-hmm. right? And so that's literally what I did. I got my first offer in 7th grade from Florida, right? I didn't know what that meant. You know, no clue. I literally, if we go back and listen to, I just started playing basketball after 7th grade. That would be my 3rd year. So I didn't really know what I was doing. You know, I just happened to be pretty good at it, and so people started to take notice. But fast forwarding to high school, I committed right after my sophomore year, just to kind of shut all that stuff down, because I didn't like going through the process of having, you know, I would have to go check the coach's mailbox, and there would be stacks of mail in there. I was like, I don't want this. You know, it's not for me. But I did have, like, I wanted to go to Texas, and you know, quite honestly, initially they were not interested. You know, but I can't say not interested. I wasn't getting a lot of attention from Texas at first.
Right.
And so it was more so of Louisville. Mm-hmm. Kansas came on late. I kind of put the coaching staff at Texas in a little bit of a bind when that happened. But you know, I got a whole bunch of a lot of mail, a lot of calls. I'll be honest with you. I took my official visit after I had already committed, like a year and a half after I committed. That's how much I did not like going through the process. I was like, all right, because we had Top in Texas was a big tournament back in the day. I don't know if they still do that or not, but it was at the University of Texas, and so we played there. Texas wanted me to come back. Texas wanted me to come back and speak with Coach Barnes, and so we just set up a meeting with them. And I was like, yo, if you guys want me, I'm here. And they were like, all right, cool. We're committed to you. You're committed to us. And I was like, all right, cool. It's done. I don't have to do anything else. I know I'm going to college. I can just chill with the whole recruiting process for my junior and senior year. Like, nobody's going to call me. Was completely wrong.
Well, nobody gonna call me. Yeah, right.
Stuff kept coming. I was, and so, but the thing is, they told me to keep it kind of on the low for a little bit, and I was like, so I called and I said, hey, I got so many people calling me, like from reporters trying to figure out where I committed, so they can put it up on their website and all that stuff. So can we just kind of release it, to kind of let this stuff die down? And so finally, we let everybody know, thinking that I was going to die down, and so it did for a little bit, and then of course the season starts back up, and what I talked about before, there was a dude named Curtis. No, was his name Curtis? CJ Miles. Remember CJ Miles?
Yeah.
From Scott. So he was supposed to come to Texas too. So it was like literally me and him for Mr. Basketball State of Texas at the time, right?
Okay.
And so what happened is, obviously CJ, of course, went to the league, right? But at that time, he was getting like a little bit more attention than I was. I didn't really like that. I didn't really like that part of it. Like I didn't like the attention from outside school, but the school that I was going to, like, at least be equal. We're both going to the same school, be equal. And the reason I say I didn't like that is because every year we would be in position to meet in the regional semifinals or the regional finals to play against each other, because we never did play against each other in high school. So I would always say, yo, my team's here. The other person with the initials is not. So let's dial it back. So, and then that's the time. The reason I bring that up is because now Kansas started calling, because Kansas was going to have a whole bunch of guards leaving. I was really good friends with Mario Chalmers at the time. We were at literally every camp together. And he was calling me and said, hey, the coach is about to give you a call, wants to talk to you. So when I got that call from Kansas, I'm like, Rick?
Yeah.
And and literally the very next game, here comes Rick in the stands watching.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like, all right, cool. Like, don't put me down here and put somebody else up here. Yeah, my team is up here and his team is down. So that was kind of like the contentious part of what I put the coaching staff through for maybe a couple of days or so. But other than that, I didn't really like the recruiting process. It was like, all right, Texas, you want me? I want to go here. It was super convenient because my family was here. I really wanted to be able to watch me play in college. Easy 20-minute ride from Round Rock to the stadium, and the rest is history.
Cool. Well, what kind of advice would you give the guys and gals going through recruiting right now? Would you tell them to take all of their visits? What do you think? I know you did it differently.
Yeah. And I hope this doesn't come out bad, but don't just take a visit, just take a visit. If you're not interested in the school, don't waste the people's time.
Yeah.
And be straight up with them. If it's not somewhere that you can see yourself going, don't waste their time. Tell them. Say, hey, I appreciate it. I'm not interested. They'll have a ton more respect for you that way, as opposed to taking the trip, going through all of that, and then to find out that you weren't even interested at all.
Yeah.
So and to be honest, we all know we have a top 5. When you get to a point where you have colleges calling and stuff, you have a top 5 of where you want to go. If this school came knocking, you would say, okay, cool. I'm there. So we all had that top 5. So what I would recommend is look at the whole university as a whole, and not just the actual athletic program, because you're not only just going to be playing basketball. And I know I sound like our parents right now, but it really is true, because your degree is not going to say basketball. You're going to have that university's name on there and whatever you majored in, right? So if you can see yourself after your career is over and whatever you plan on majoring in, if that's going to be beneficial for you, then take the visit. If not, figure all that stuff out and then start kind of figuring out which visits that you want to go to, because it's whatever the ball is going to lose air sooner rather than later, and sometimes it's way sooner. People like to call it a backup plan, and it's really not a backup plan. It's just a plan, because we all know the inevitable is going to happen. You're going to stop playing basketball. You're going to stop playing the sport. So how do you pivot into the next realm of where you want to be successful? It's not a plan B, because now it sounds like plan A failed. It's like, no, plan A ended. or the plan, that part of the plan. Now it's time to pivot onto the next part. So factoring all that information in terms of what you want to do after the sport is critical as well, as far as going on official visits and looking at different universities.
Absolutely. I agree with that. 100%. So you choose your school.
Yeah.
You get there. It's freshman year. So starting this thing all over again. You're freshman on campus. Are you a small fish in the big pond or what?
I am, because I am the smallest of small in a big pond, because now I go back to freshman year of high school and saying, and now there was another tagline that was added on to it that, oh, he's too small, and they just picked him up because he's the hometown kid.
Here we go with the activity and the excuses. Here we go.
The hometown kid. So that added a little fuel to the fire, because I mean, I did have choices to go elsewhere. I wanted to go to Texas, but if you look at it again, it's the same situation that I was in my freshman year going into high school. There was a really good guard in front of me. I was like 4. You know, Daniel Gibson, you got Ken Paulino, you got PJ Tucker, you got all these people that can play any position on the court. Right? And for me, again, I guess a little bit of being naive mixed in with a little arrogance, mixed in with a little confidence. I'm like, I don't care who's my teammate. I can get on the court. You know, my dad, my mom used to say all the time, you can't stop the cream from rising to the top. Right? And what that meant is, if you're talented enough, someone will always notice and you'll get on the floor. And so I was like, all right, cool. You know, I didn't go in there thinking that I was going to be a starter. And that's where a lot of people get hung up on when they go to college. They're like, oh, well, am I going to be a starter? I'm like, well, first of all, why are you looking for someone to give you something right away? Why are we not wanting to work for it? Okay. And second of all, it's like, that coach can't make that determination that you're going to be a starter right away, and you haven't set foot on that campus and seen the level that it goes to after high school, because everybody's an All-American in college. Everybody, right? So you go, even the big fish now were once the little fish when they got on campus. KD was not KD when he got to Texas. You know, he was good, but he wasn't the KD of KD now. You know, it took a little bit of time. And so it's a revolving door. It starts all over. So it went from, all right, cool. You know, I'm the hometown kid. That's the only reason why I'm here. Noted. I bet I'll prove all you guys wrong. And now, literally, if you go look at the University of Texas men's record book, my name is all over it.
All over it. That's crazy. Tell us about some of your accolades, if I can talk correctly.
I got it right here.
Well, go ahead. List them off.
Man, you gonna make me read all this? All right, hold on. All right. It says, on the court for a school record 108 victories during his 4 seasons. First in UT history in scoring. First in UT history in career 3-pointers. First in UT history in games played. First in UT history in career minutes. First in UT history in career scoring points in the NCAA tournament. Third in UT history in scoring. Third in UT history in free throw percentage. Sixth in UT history in field goal percentage. Sixth in UT history in 3-point field goal percentage. Sixth in UT history in career steals. I hold the top single season records for 3-pointers made, 120, 118, and 105. The single season record for higher free throw percentage. First in Big 12 conference history in 3-pointers made. First in Big 12 conference history in career games played. Sixth in Big 12 conference history in career points. 12th in NCAA history for career 3-pointers. And third NCAA all-time in career 3-pointers made.
Dang. Boom, boom, boom. Where the rebounds at, though?
Nah, I'm going to try to get hit in the face.
Nah, you ain't going in there, huh? Well, man, congratulations. I know that we were always watching it. Y'all were playing KU or OU or somebody, you know, it was a tight game. We were on the road. We were like, the boys playing. We were always watching. So
yeah, the feeling was mutual.
Yeah. So let's get into, we got a little bit time left. Let's get into you know, going overseas and playing in pro.
Okay.
How did you have that mentality of pro NBA? Was that a goal? Talk about the mindset there. Maybe
Yeah.
senior year.
So again, if we're listening to this, I'm super goal oriented. So the goal was to be drafted and play in the NBA. Now, the key word drafted, then play in the NBA. Right. I did not get drafted. Right. But what made me mad is that the team that wanted me to play summer league with them, they called before the draft even happened and said, "Hey, we have a few picks. We're not going to take him, but we want him to come play summer league for us." I was like, well, why not just draft me then?
Yeah.
So those 60 picks went by, and again, the goal was to be drafted and then to play in the NBA. Flawed thinking, might I add. Very flawed thinking, but that was the goal that I had. And so when that didn't happen, I told my mom, I was like, all right, cool, my career's over, I'm good. And it wasn't a huge deal for me because, again, I keep saying going back, but you go back to what I was talking about, there was no plan A or plan B. It was just a plan. And at that time, I wanted to be a sports agent, and so I'm like, all right, cool. I didn't get drafted, which was the goal. I was never afraid not to have basketball because I'm probably going to go off on a tangent right here. But, basketball was not my identity. I just happened to be good at it. And so I worked on it and, got successful. But it never was AJ, the basketball player to me. It was AJ who played basketball. That's the personality that I had. Now, other people that say, "Oh, AJ, the basketball player," I'm like, "Yo, what's up?" But that's how they identified me. That wasn't my identity. My identity was just, my name's AJ or who played basketball. And so when that day came, I didn't get drafted. It wasn't like a big blow. It's like, all right, cool. I'll go be good at something else. It's not a big deal, right? And so I told my mom and dad, I was like, all right, cool. Like, I don't want to go to Europe, or at that time I was like, I don't want to go out here to go summer league. No, I'm good. It's not that big a deal to me. I'll go do something else and be just fine. You'll read about me somewhere else besides basketball.
Okay.
But they convinced me. They were like, just give it a shot. Give it a shot. At that point in time, when I went to summer league, ended up getting hurt, messed up my ankle. So then I went over to Greece, and my Greek team just that NBA team sent me over there because their overseas scout was the GM for that team. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'll go over here. So I was in a little small town called Trikala. It's about 4 hours away from Athens.
What was it called?
Trikala. It's Trikala, I believe.
Okay. And then what was your summer league team?
New Jersey. Well, yeah, New Jersey. Now Brooklyn.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so went over there and was the leading scorer for the country. I didn't go over there and like stink up and going. I was leading scorer for the country. So then the Nets called me back after that season to go back out there. Messed up my other ankle, I'm like, all right, this is probably not meant to be, guys. Like, so then I went over to Italy for a season, and then I played 2 more seasons in the Czech Republic, and we won the championship out there. And then I got to the point where I'm like, I don't want to spend, 8 or 9 months a year in Europe. I don't want to do that. That's not how I see my life going. Especially, and this sounds so privileged right here when I say this, but especially coming from the University of Texas, when we would literally just drive up to the plane, get on the plane, have hot food waiting for us on that plane. Now over in Europe, hiking through airports, waking up early, catching flights, getting layovers. I was like, no, this is not how professional life is supposed to be.
Exactly. It was different. It was
good. And I had got to the point, me and Kayla had gotten really serious. I had proposed right before I went over for my last season. I was like, I don't want to leave her alone. And I was already feeling like, I can go do something else. So, for my professional career, I would say it went well. It was just short, and it wasn't, from an injury per se. It was just I felt I could go be good at something else, and I made that decision. I was like, all right, I'm done. I'll go do something else.
That's awesome. So what you doing now?
Great question. It's so for the last 7-8 years, I've been doing residential real estate, and for the last 3 years, about 3 years ago, yeah, I opened up my own real estate brokerage, Supreme One Realty, and we've grown pretty fast. So we operate in San Antonio, Houston. Well, I have agents in San Antonio and Houston, and of course the Austin and surrounding areas. So I have about 25 agents that work for my company. Still looking to grow, and I mean, this past year I think we did like $25 million in residential resale. So
wow,
it's good. It's going well. It's that same mindset that I took for athletics and just applied it to the business world.
Awesome. So you said you've been doing that for the last 7 to 8 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it takes time, just like putting in the practice, putting in the reps, and understanding new skills, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. The reason why I like it, and my sister was the kind of one that got me into it. When I was living in Italy, I brought her out there to live with me. I was like, hey, just be my personal assistant, which means just make me some food every once in a while, and I'll pay you while you study to get your real estate license. Right? Mm-hmm. And so she was doing that, and she kept telling me, you need to get your license, you need to get your license. And I'm like, I don't know enough about this. I literally said, I don't want to be a used car salesman. I don't want to do that because that's what I thought all sales were. But I mean, all that was completely wrong. And so I finally started looking into it. You know, once you kind of get that threshold of like, all right, I got to find something I can do that still keeps me motivated, that still keeps that competitive edge.
Yeah.
That's just not basketball or just not sports related. And so real estate it was because it's hard. It's a kind of eat what you kill. If you're not selling anything, then you're not eating and you're not providing for your family. So that's kind of my motivating factor now is to make sure that my family, my wife and my kid never want for anything. So that's what keeps me going. But it's a startup. It took a while. There were many nights where I'm laying in the bed like, all right, God, any day now.
I have two more questions. So, quick question was, did you ever get into look into being an agent anymore? I know you had that thought of being an agent.
I didn't. So once I made the decision to actually go play for summer league and then go over into Europe, I was like, all right, we're back on full steam ahead. You know, we're gonna make this team. That didn't have mess up my ankle. Now I went from over to Europe to like, all right, cool. I'm gonna make a name for myself over here, doing what I do best. And I know how to score the ball. So and the same thing happened. I was signed to be the point guard. 2 games into the season, hey AJ, we got to move you to the 2 because everybody's watching you, and we got to be able to hide you into the defense. So I'm like, all right, whatever, you know. And that whole thing started all over again. Went to my Italian team, same thing happened. Went to the Czech team, same thing happened.
Mm-hmm.
So
you could have told him that.
I blame the point guards that can't score. That's who I blame.
Yeah. Okay. Last question. So what advice would you give professional players or even just players that are going from junior, senior year, and they're going to play, right? How would you tell them to prepare for, let's say, retirement? But not really retirement, but just having building wealth and thinking outside the box while they're playing their sport. Also being smart with money and what to do with that while they're playing. Because I know I didn't do a darn thing while I was playing for 7 years. But we'll talk about that another time.
Well, I think the best thing that could have happened to me was that I had some very, 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 very cheap parents.
Frugal.
We'll say frugal. I had some very, very frugal parents, and that like latched on to me. Mm-hmm. You know, so I never even that first year. So here's how it works in Europe. It's way different than the NBA, as you know. NBA, they'll sign you, give you a boatload of money, and you've done absolutely nothing in the NBA just yet. But you got a boatload of money. The exact opposite in Europe. You get paid when you're older in Europe. So my very first contract was very, very little because I was fresh out of college. Although, you know, going to University of Texas, that kind of puts a little bit of weight behind you. Mm-hmm. But It's still not those heavy hitter contracts that the vet European players get, but it was still more money than I had ever seen.
Right.
Right. So I'm like, okay, cool. I don't want to lose this. So from my mindset, and I coach the exact opposite of now when I'm talking about finances. But my mindset was of one that was fearful, like fear of loss, because I had the money was given to me for playing the sport. How do I hold on to it? But it should have been, how do I make it work for me? So I held on to it, but it wasn't really working capital for me. It was just sitting in a bank account. And you guys know, if you have like a Chase or Wells Fargo or one of those big bank accounts, you get like 13-cent interest every month. I'm like, but my mindset, I was like, it's still mine. It's still in my account. It's still mine. So the best advice that I can give as people are looking to retire is start looking into wealth building vehicles. That's life insurance, mutual funds, things like that, where you can park your money. I know with me, I had a hard time at first saying, okay, here's several $1,000s, knowing I can't touch it for, 40 years or so. That was tough for me starting. But I know building wealth is not a short-term thing. It is, you got to play the long game with it, And so that's what I coach on now, is finding those financial vehicles that you can park your money, but it's not just in a parking spot. It's growing, along with what the economy is doing. And so if I had done that early on, as opposed to just letting it sit in a big bank savings account, or just letting it sit in a checking account, then I probably would have been a little bit better off kind of getting started with this real estate company or with the real estate business. But if you are in a position to where you're looking to retire or even starting it, you got to develop a strategy of, one, knowing what your budget is. A lot of people don't even have a budget. They don't know what their monthly spending is. They don't know. What boggles me is that some people don't even know the accounts they have that are draining their money. Like, you may have an Apple Card or whatever that's $299 a month that you don't even know about.
Right.
Now, $299 is not that much, but again, you got to kind of get everything in order so that you know what your monthly financials are, what your monthly budget is, what your weekly budget is, so that at the end of the day how much is in your account, what's working capital for me, where do I have a little bit of room to grow, can I spend more here? But it all starts with actually knowing your financial status. So that's the best advice I can give someone that's looking to go that route, is start with where you are. Going back to what I was saying before, you have to have the ability to self-assess. A lot of people out here faking it, thinking they got all this money, but they really don't, because you got a whole bunch of bills.
Yeah.
Right?
Man.
Or you got a whole bunch of credit card debt or something like that. So start where you're at, make a strategy on how to get those, on how to put that money that's going to start working for you in a positive way, but still be able to live on a day-to-day basis. But a lot of times, and this, being an athlete, you already have an ego, right? Just from the sport itself. A lot of times people don't have the ability to say, okay, well, cool, I need to self-check my ego, because I'm not playing the short game with my money. I got to play the long game if I want to build generational wealth.
Awesome. Would you say any advice for college players that, what was my question? Any advice for college players right now on how to maximize their 4 years in college, whether they go off to the working world or they go into their pro sport? How can they maximize those 4 years?
Very, very simple. Don't let anyone tell you what your major is going to be. Simple as that. Yes. So if you have an idea of where you can see yourself being successful outside of your sport, go major in that degree, because not only are you going to get that degree, again, we all know it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. You're going to surround yourself with a lot of people that are probably going to be in that industry later down the line. So now you're building connections, you're building a network of people that you can reach out to ask questions. When the time does come for when that ball deflates, you can reach out to them and say, hey, we were at school together, blah, 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 blah. But you built those connections. So And it happened to me. My mom was so pissed off at me. I was like, yo, bro, I'm just trying to play basketball. That's all. You know, but
Yeah.
don't let anyone dictate what your grade is going to be, even if that means you may have to. Your hours may be a little longer than what the typical person is going to be that's playing college basketball or playing college sports because you chose to go a different route and what you truly are interested in, as opposed to just saying that you got a degree.
Awesome. AJ, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah.
I hope you guys that are watching or will watch, players and parents, coaches, anybody in the sport world interested in our talk, I hope you enjoy it. We will be back next week and all of the next 2 weeks, I believe, on Tuesdays at 1. So AJ's going to be coming back next week, and we're going to be talking about credit repair and how he did start his Supreme Realty business. So that's on another podcast called The Triple Double Life that I'm starting for this new year, that I'm trying to shed light on how to build wealth for people in the sports industry, mainly athletes, right? So we don't have to run into the moment of retirement and then we don't know what we're doing, or we don't have anything to fall back on as far as our wealth and portfolio and a career. So it's all about financial literacy there. Yeah, any last words on your new credit?
I'm looking forward. I appreciate the road down memory lane, but I'm looking forward to our future calls that we're going to do, future podcasts that that speak directly to what you were saying about financial literacy. Because just as passionate I was about basketball, I am about real estate and the finances that go around of how you can start making it work for you.
Me too. AJ, thank you so much. Stay on the line. But for everybody watching, thanks for watching. Throw some comments, throw some questions in there, and we'll get back to you. But I see you when I see you. Peace.